Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Hope Watts, board certified family physician, health coach, speaker, author, and lifestyle expert. I help mid career women find the right fitness levels and the right foods so they can have the lifestyle they've always wanted. Just coming today to see how everyone is doing. We were spared that large snowstorm on the East Coast, but it did get colder here than it normally would be. I think we went down to 28 at one point, and it felt chillier. It felt chillier. People were putting on a little bit more warmer jackets and things like that. Um, so we have had an interesting week. President Biden is moving forward with his agenda and his plan. I think people are feeling a little bit more hopeful now, and his ratings are pretty high at this point. Um, the vaccinations are going forth slowly, but um, the demand is very high, and the government seems to be responding. So I hope you've had a good week. And I hope that you were able to not be too encumbered by that snowstorm. And you're still masking and you are still social distancing as much as possible. One good thing in North Carolina, and I think throughout the country, the rate of hospitalizations is going down. And the rate of the number of people who are getting COVID is going down also. So that's very encouraging, although we can't just decide not to do anything, not to stop masking or anything like that, because it's still going to take a while for everyone to be fully immunized. So that being said, I will start on our talk for today. And I felt that since it was Black History Month, that we would talk about someone who I really admire. And I found out that she didn't have a lot of help. She had a pretty rough lifestyle there. So we are going to talk about Madam C.J. Walker, who was the first self-made Black female millionaire. Oh, hi, Pam. How are you? I'm glad you tuned in. We're talking about something different today, so I hope you'll enjoy it. She did not have all the things that people would have to become a millionaire. She did not have a rich family. No one left her any money. She didn't have a lot of education. Oh, I'm glad you're doing well, Pam. She didn't have a lot of education, but she saw a need and she sought to address the need. Also, she didn't have any family help. She didn't have anyone in her family who knew anything about being in business. And so she purely learned this all by herself. And I think that's what fascinates me about her and her quest to, I guess, do better for herself, better than her parents did. So let's delve into some of the background here. Her real name is Sarah Breedlove. She was born to former slaves. Actually, she was born just after the Emancipation Proclamation. So she was born a freed person. However, her parents were slaves at the time, and during the Emancipation Proclamation, they had nothing else they could do. They were they became sharecroppers because they worked on the land. And it was a very, very difficult time because there was no help there. You know, people knew they were emancipated, but there was no training. There was nothing that else they could do. So they lived off the land. and were given subsistence wages because that they felt they really didn't want to give them any money, but they knew they had to because they were free then. She lived in Louisiana, and she didn't have a very easy life. She was orphaned at the age of 6, and she got married at the age of 14. Now, from what I understand, there are still some rules on the books that state that young women can get married at age 14. I know there's a big movement to stop that, but as it was, she got married at the age 14. She did have a daughter, and her name was Alethea, and she was widowed at age 20. So in those days, of course, you couldn't go to the doctor. And at that time, physicians and healthcare was in its infancy. So he could have died of a natural cause. We don't know. She persisted on. She was living in Louisiana at that time, and then she moved to St. Louis and worked as a laundress. Now, for those who aren't familiar with being a laundress, in those days, they hired people to wash their clothes, wash the sheets, wash just about everything. I think at that time they didn't have like disposable diapers. They had diapers you had to wash out. So all day long, she would, have, and you've seen those old washing boards with the metal in it, and they would scrub those clothes up and down on the washboard, and they would make a living doing that. They didn't make a whole lot, but of course, I know her hands were probably terrible because I've been washing my hands all the time, and I've been using, hand sanitizer, and they look awful. I have to remind myself to put lotion on. And many Black women did that at that time. But she started to lose her hair. And the type of soaps that they had were nothing like we have now. There was no detergents. There was no choice in detergents. It was lye soap. And lye soap was could be very rough on your hands and your skin. And she was also, because of a lot of steamed water that was brought in, she was probably exposed to a lot of steam, a lot of dirt, and the lye soap. And many Black women at that time had a lot of problems with their hair also. They had hair falling out. And in those days, there wasn't any plumbing. So when you did take a bath, you washed your hair at that time. And Lord knows, in those times, they couldn't do it very often because, you had to take the water from, the spigot, wherever that was, probably outside, warm the water up, and then put it in this large tub. So it wasn't done that often. And so consequently, women's hair was not washed often enough. And regular shampooing was impossible. And there were a lot of pollutants around because, there weren't any laws about, air pollution, and, they probably had coal fires too. Lice was a problem, and so was poor nutrition. And it was very hard to maintain very healthy hair at that time. She, as a result of her hair loss, could not find any products on the market that were going to help her. There were other products on the market. They were mostly made by white businessmen, but they did not address that problem. She tells the story that she was looking for something, and evidently may have been experimenting herself. The story isn't that clear. And she tells the story that she had a dream about what ingredients she needed to mix together to make this particular product that would help her with hair loss. She started mixing these ingredients together and decided to try them on her hair. And lo and behold, within a few weeks, her hair started growing back. So she continued to do this and maybe, fine tune it, and then let her friends use it. And they themselves started to have an improvement in their hair growth. And at that time, the Madam Walker's wonderful hair grower was born. Now, can you imagine at that time, she was mixing this all up in her kitchen or, and that was it. And she had found something and she had started to develop something that was going to help people, especially in that time for Black people. Now, in that time, there were no products for Black people at all. Whatever was there, you just had to use it. There was no special shampoo for this, special shampoo for that. So this is what she did with her business. And this is what I find fascinating. She sold directly to Black women on a regular basis. She would go around to different places and just sell her products. And I guess gave them tips on how to use the products and developed a very loyal group of women. Of course. Why wouldn't you? You have this woman who's coming around who's very nice and she's guaranteed almost that your hair is going to grow. I mean, she's showing you, hi, Daisy, come on in. She's showing you products that can help your hair, and you don't have to wear a scarf on your hair all the time. Because in those days, if your hair was falling out, most people felt ashamed about it, and they put scarves on their head just to cover it up. But people knew they were the lower socioeconomic group. And she did not want to show herself as someone like that. The product became so successful that she was she was in St. Louis at the time. She then moved her business to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Hi, Daisy, good to see you. We're talking about the first Black millionaire in the United States. She, and this is another fascinating thing about her, she developed and started a beauty school, and she put one of her factories right there. And she left her daughter in charge of it. 2 years later, she was doing so well that she moved her headquarters to Indianapolis, which is another state out in the Midwest. So let's just recap here. This is a woman without any education. She didn't have any help from her family, but had the business acumen. And I must mention that one of her husbands was sort of a businessman, but she knew when to move at specific times. So she had that kind of, I guess, sense. This was the time that we needed to move. And she continued to have women go out. She hired mostly Black women to go out and sell her products. So there wasn't a thing about, I've got to leave it in someone's store and the person may have thrown it out and the people wouldn't get any money. She instilled in her workers, good ethics. And from what I understand, they did well for women in those days. She moved to Indianapolis, which had a large population of Black women. And the city had a lot of railroads, so she could get her products, the ingredients that she needed in and out. And she could get the products out to people all around the country. At its height, the Madam C.J. Walker Company employed over 3,000 women, mostly Black women, who sold these products door to door. So she had a kind of a closed system. So when the products were manufactured, they came directly to the persons that she hired, and those women kept track of the inventory. So even though it was in very, very rugged times, and in those days, sometimes if you alerted people, especially of the other persuasion, the Caucasian race, they would do things to really outdo you. So she had a pretty close system there. And I thought that was very wise also. As her business grew, she had a reputation for being an entrepreneur, and she was a philanthropist. She gave very liberally to many people and to many organizations. She believed in schools, even though I couldn't find anything to say that she had an education, but she must have had some education because how would she be able to read, directions, and how would she know that certain things were correct or they weren't correct? Because, if you don't have an education or you can't read, you are really handicapped in a lot of ways, more than you can really think. She donated to scholarships to certain colleges. One of them was the Tuskegee Institute, which is known. It was started many years ago for the education of Black men and women. There was a Black YMCA. She donated to that, and many other organizations that needed money at that time. Now, can you imagine? This is a woman who has her own business. She was the only one. There were probably other women who had businesses, but probably nowhere on the scale that she had. And she felt compelled to donate money to others who didn't have it. Additionally, I found out that she encouraged her workers to give back to the community. She was involved in many organizations in her local community, and she encouraged her workers to do the same. So not only was she uplifting herself, but she was using her money and her influence to uplift other people in the community. She is remembered as an entrepreneur, really an entrepreneur as we would call it today, who pioneered products for Black women. And the products for Black women were in that time, and to this day we have multiple products now for Black women to meet many different needs. But she's the one that started it all. She's inspired many women to go on and start their own businesses. And she had business acumen that she developed from just being in the business. Many people would have to learn that at a school or so. And she's a philanthropist, meaning that she gave liberally to many of her causes. So I hope you found that to be interesting. And I thought I'd change it up this time, do something a little lighter. Now, what I would like to say is that hair loss is still an issue for women anyway. So products for women to grow their hair are still being sold today, not by Ms. Walker though, but by other people. So if anyone has any questions, I am open to questions at this time. Now, I do know she has a great, great, great granddaughter who bears the same name as her original daughter. And I guess keeps track of the family history. And I think that I think the line is still available. I'm not sure where, but I think some of her products or some of the products or maybe some newer products are still available. So if there are no questions at this time, anyone with questions? No? Well, I hope you enjoyed our talk on Madam C.J. Walker. I have a question here. What happens to Ms. Walker's products? I don't know for sure. I think in reviewing information, I understand that her company may still be around, but I do not know if the original products, the ones that she made, are still available. The product line that she has now may have been revised due to the fact that there are a lot more chemicals available. We know a lot more about women's hair and women's health. And so the product line that, from what I could tell, may be a little different than what she had originally. Yes, the ingredients that she used was sulfur and petroleum jelly, and I think there was some violet oil that she got from Africa somewhere, and and I think the violet oil, from what I remember, was used to kind of camouflage the sulfur um, in her product, because sulfur can have a pretty pretty poignant smell. And when I was growing up, there was a product called Sulfur 8, and it was marketed to people who had dandruff. And in school, we could always tell somebody who had sulfur 8 in their hair because you could smell the sulfur. It was that poignant. Later on, that company came out with another product that was supposed to help your hair, but it didn't have that smell. But I can imagine people knew, you had some sulfur in her hair. So those are the ingredients that I can recall. But evidently, they worked very well for women's hair. And I think she even talked about, how to take care of your hair. Washing it as much as possible. And it's probably a little easier to wash your hair than maybe have a bath at times. And washing would probably help with the lice also. Other things that she had were iron combs. So she may have started, it's debatable now, that she may have started the straightening comb or the forerunner of the straightening comb. So that I couldn't find out definitely, but it's debatable whether she started that or not. And she had certain lotions for the hair, I guess, to make it soft. Because, if you don't, my hair has been, I've had some things in my hair, so it's a little softer. But I'm imagining that hair that hadn't been processed or hadn't been washed or had not been combed through quite frequently probably needed to be softened. So I'm quite sure the lotions were used for that. Any other questions? Boy, Pam, you had a lot of questions today. Anything else? So the legacy of C.J. Walker, Madam C.J. Walker, lives on. I can't tell you how many times her name comes up when we're talking about persons who are famous for their lives and what they've contributed to our history. And her name comes up very frequently. And she's someone, I'm so glad that I did that talk, because I've always heard about her, and she was a millionaire, but I didn't realize that she had done so many things other than the hair care line that she had. Yes, she did. She had a lot of other things that she contributed to us. Well, thank you for coming in. And next week we'll probably delve into something different. We'll probably look at a physician who contributed something to our history. So I hope you have a wonderful day. And my name is Dr. Hope Watts, board certified family physician, speaker, health coach, author, and lifestyle expert. Please follow me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And I just wanted to remind you that my book will be coming out in the next few months, so stay tuned. Have a wonderful week, everyone.